Especially for somebody, if you're 24 hours into feeling like, oh, Carl's really crushing it or Susan's doing it, if you feel any level of like that, you're completely confused, because if you're here, you're doing it, right? The question is, how big is doing it? And what do you actually want? And I think the thing that I would really try to land first before I go into other subject matters is, you'd be stunned how much your personal upside is being capped if you aren't profoundly kind to the people that work for you. It is a very grandma statement. It's a very kind of like foofy kind of like, the world is kind shit, but it is profoundly impactful. And so I would bet the farm that many dozens of people in here are dicks to their team. I would bet the farm on it. It is just the way the business world is. It's the way society is. And I beg for the people in here, as I'm going on this subject matter, if it gives you any thoughts or feelings, if you want it for you, I promise you that what's happening underneath you and how you're setting the tone and what you're doing is a huge impact on your zeros. This is not about entitlement and letting people get lazy and like silly non-results things. This is about building empires. This is about building big empires, but you would be stunned, I believe. And the reason this is an important subject matter is, I'm sure at this point, plenty of people have heard about the Great Resignation, right? Because of COVID. The thing that I'm way more worried about as all of you go on your journey to build the things that you want to build is the great never applying in the first place. The amount of options 17, 19, 22-year-olds have going into the world, and they're aware of it, of how easy, that will be the word I use, it is to make $60,000 a year flipping on eBay, making content on TikTok, dabbling in NFT land. There are so many more options than what we grew up with if you're over 35 here, that it's profound and people are missing what's actually happening. And this is an absolute subject matter that I hope you take very seriously. If you are not focused on retention, people actually wanting to stay, if you are not focused on retention first, you will lose. And when I say lose, you'll still win, but you'll lose upside that you can't even see. So it's incredibly important, since we have time together on this day, that we nail this subject matter, which is, first and foremost, the number one thing as you think about how you're spending your money to make more money, AKA marketing, you have to take your personal opinions off the table. The number one reason so many people struggle is because they say dumb shit like, well, I don't like TikTok. Who gives a fuck, Carl? Do you like money? This is the profoundly most fundamentally silly thing that I hear every day of my life. Gary, I don't get YouTube, but trillions of people do. I don't like it. You probably don't like a lot of things you do every day. If you're here, my favorite thing about a group here is that you eat a lot of shit every day to make it happen. There's plenty of things you don't like. This is not about what you like or what your opinion is of a platform, or you don't like technology. I mean, some people try to go so lofty with me. Gary, I'm not doing it because it's bad for the kids, right? Like, or they go political. It's like looking for any excuse not to put in the work to something they don't understand yet. And so for me, when I look at the landscape of what's happening in the world, the speed in which attention is shifting is profound. Facebook and Google, Twitter, and YouTube, TikTok, these things are moving so fast. You know it. TikTok came out of nowhere for most of you in the last 24 months. Elon bought Twitter yesterday. This stuff is just moving. It's moving and it's moving fast. And you have to understand that even more importantly than balancing your checkbook is your ability to understand where your customer's attention is and how to make pictures, videos, the written word, audio, to get in front of them and do business. And for a lot of people that are winning, the quickest way they lose market share is by being outflanked by competitors doing contemporary work when they got cozy because they were winning. This today is about business. You can do it however you want to do it. When I start this conversation with the first 10 minutes around culture and how you treat people, I'm not joking about what I said. I know a lot of people struggle with that here. They don't work hard enough to your standards. They shouldn't. They don't make as much money as you do. Like people email me all the time, how do I get my employees to work as hard as me? I'm like, help them start their own business. Seriously. I appreciate that. These are the important conversations. Because when you win this, when you figure out how to build an actual team, you can scale. I can do a lot of things, but you can only do so much. So many of you are carrying way too much stuff because you're not building teams. You're a micromanager, you're insecure, you're not building up retention. You can't create scale. It's only people. It's people. And so that's a huge combo. And then the second part, and then Thaddeus, I think we should get up here and do some Q&A. The second part is something we really need to spend time on while I'm still here. If you do not have a contemporary marketing plan, you are losing market share, you are losing growth. If you don't have people around you that want to be there and you're constantly having to retrain and find different people, you're losing growth. The blueprint's simple, the execution's hard, so why don't we do a bunch of Q&A around that. I'm really, really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So what drives you?
A level of gratitude and guilt that I have such a natural talent to communicate and execute that I can have a profound impact, and I feel a sense of obligation to kind of leave it on the field.
To not waste it.
Yeah, it's kind of a curiosity of like, how good can I do it? You know? Like, it's like, again, for the people that raised their hands and for the people that don't know me well, like my big thesis is you have to cut out the noise, all of it. Especially the positive noise. When everybody tells you you're great and you're awesome, you become addicted to that. Now you're completely vulnerable to the negativity. The reason I'm so out there on social is because it's hard to be so out there on social. Most people can't deal with the heat. They don't like when somebody says they're ugly or stupid or full of shit or a scam artist or they suck or they're overrated. People don't like that. I don't care, not because I'm so cool, it's because that person doesn't know me. How can I possibly be upset when Sally Pants 47 is having a bad day? Sally Pants 47 is having a bad day and decides to take it out on me because I look too happy. I'm not mad at hate, I'm compassionate to hate. But at the same token, knock on wood for me, 90% of my comments are just little goat emojis. and that requires even more tune out. Because when you get high on your own supply, it's a wrap.
So I know that I know I've heard you talk a lot about, well, I know like you said, from switching to email. When you said that, I was thinking of my mom because she was in school, and they said, oh, we're going to email, and she's like, why the heck would we use email? I can just walk down to the other classroom and just give teacher so-and-so a message. I know I've heard you say you're bullish on TikTok.
Do you know, I apologize, do you know that when Canvas came out, all the artists said that wasn't real art, that if you didn't put it on buildings, it wasn't real art? You should go read what they said about the television. Like, we always demonize new technology. Humans are incredible at romanticizing yesterday and demonizing today. So I get it. Go ahead.
So I know you're bullish on TikTok.
Very much.
What are you most bullish on in terms of if someone had to pick one form of communication, marketing channel, et cetera?
This is why Q&A is so fun, because it's a game of self-awareness. For example, if you're incredibly insecure of your visual appearance, you can't do video. It's a mental block, right? So now you might have to do audio, which all of a sudden becomes, should you do Twitter and do audio posts and post there, right? Like, for example, even though I'm a 5 or 6 time New York Times best-selling author, I can't put 2 sentences together. That's why I have to record all my books. I love when people come to when I do books and I have book signings, and man, the book sounds just like you, and I'm always laughing. I'm like, because I fucking recorded it. And somebody put it into sentence form. So for me, I'm not gonna go to LinkedIn and write 4 paragraphs over, while I have a cigar or a glass of wine or on the treadmill, like we're walking, but for me, as many of you know, video comes very natural. So I think first, You have to know yourself of what format allows you to communicate. For a lot of people here, being an independent, a little scary. Maybe having a sidekick or a friend, now all of a sudden you got a podcast, right? So you have to know yourself first. After that, to be very frank, if you actually know how they all work, they can all be great. You can dominate on Twitter. You can dominate, maybe you're a great host or hostess. All of a sudden, maybe it's a Facebook group that you should be building, right? So there's a lot of ways to win. Now, there are always moments of time where there's so much attention on a platform that if you post, you get more organic reach without paying. Everybody always gets mad at the algorithms. That's just supply and demand. You weren't there early enough. Instagram fucked me, it's free. I get like 1 billion DMs from influencers. Gary, Instagram fucked me. I'm like, it was free. You made millions, it was free. So the algorithms change not because you're a conservative, it's because they're running a fucking business and more content means less, and less consumption means supply and demand. More kids went from Instagram to TikTok. More people are posting to Instagram than they did 2 years ago. What do you think is gonna happen? Of course your video's not gonna get 100,000 views anymore. It's gonna get 40,000. It's called supply and demand of attention. That's what I trade. That has been the foundation of my career. I had email newsletter in the 90s that had 95% open rates. I bought every wine term in the world on Google AdWords the day Google AdWords started. I started a YouTube show, long form, was one of the first 5 humans on earth to do it. I was one of the first 30 people to have 1 million followers on Twitter. Like, this is my career. And so I understand it. And so the answer is figure out your form of communication. If you're capable of doing TikTok, you go all in. And TikTok is not, 3 years ago, I'm like, TikTok, TikTok, TikTok. And everyone's like, it's 14-year-old girls dancing. I'm like, for now. Facebook used to be just college kids. Now it's just grandmas. It changes. Shit changes. It evolves. And so
I'm on Facebook quite a bit.
No worries, mate. Me too. Listen, I just got done saying it's my favorite platform right now because, like, no emotion, complete detachment. Like, complete detachment. It's just whatever the market wants. And so many people make judgments subjectively in their mind about things, and it's a mistake. This is very important. You have to ask yourself what your relationship is with money. It's imperative. So much of my luck is because I don't like it enough. All my friends are like, all my friends have, like, I have so many friends that have moved to Puerto Rico and Miami and Texas, it's like fucking out of control, right? And they love to like razz me, they're like, you're in fucking, not only are you in New York, you're in New York City, you're paying city tax. Like they'll go on a whole 13 and I make real money, that's real money. And they'll like go on a 13-minute fucking rant, and then I'm like, I don't care. And they're just like baffled. I'm like, I like New York. I need the action. I don't want to fucking live in LA or Miami or Puerto Rico or fucking Ecuador. I want to live in fucking Manhattan. And so like, but for other people, they love money. And guess what? Zero judgment. Who the fuck am I? Fuck me, I don't care. If they wanna move from LA to fucking Austin, Texas, knock yourself out. If you wanna move from fucking Connecticut to fucking the outskirts of Miami, have a fucking ball.
The thing that I love is my mom has no idea who Gary is.
I have some real hopes and dreams. I actually have no expectations of anybody or anything, which is why I'm always happy. But I have real expectations about heaven. I've got some big hopes and dreams for heaven. There's 2 core things I'm really hoping about heaven. 1, that everyone's there and I can have some real talks. I got a lot of questions from the people that are not around anymore. And 2, which is really cool, I think you're gonna like this. I think that heaven has some weird version of Google. Where this is like, I dream about this, where you go up there and you can type in anything and heaven will show you what would have happened. For example, first thing I'm doing when I get to heaven, first query. Heaven, show me the time I came closest to dying without knowing it. Enter. And I have these 2 core scenarios. 1, if I would have eaten that peanut, I would have choked on it and died. Or two, my favorite one, the time I forgot my keys in the house, ran out, forgot, ran back in and grabbed them, but had I grabbed them, I would have got hit by a bus and died. So I've got big hopes for heaven. I'm gonna be super pissed if it's not there. And so I'm excited about that.
Final question, if someone, you see people that they buy the shoes, the watches, the Starbucks, but they're not willing to invest in themselves and they think, oh my gosh, poor, woe is me. How do you get people to shift from the consumption to investing in themselves?
I have so many friends that like nice things. They always get mad at me because I put out a lot of content about this and I don't do a good enough job, so I'm gonna try to be better about it. The reason I talk about buying things is because if you really know, if like you grew up for 25 years, 40 years, like reading car books and going to it and it was your grandfather's thing, like it makes all the sense in the world when you get to financial memes that you want a Lamborghini. What I'm worried about, no different than buying an NFT or anything else, are the people who are buying it to disguise the actual truth. They're using it as a proxy for their insecurity. It's how I'm gonna get the girl because I'm insecure. It's how people are gonna think I'm successful because they don't. It's all that stuff. I get worried about that because I know that's not a sustainable model for happiness, and I talk about that. You know, investing in yourself comes in a lot of forms. You know, it's one thing to say, don't buy a Starbucks for $8, or don't buy a Lamborghini or Rolex and put it into a content, a mastermind, like things to better yourself. My personal belief is better yourself is a simple game of this. I actually think most people need to downsize and simplify at scale. Maybe not as crazy as what your parents did, but that was an extreme version that actually has a ton of merit.
Well, they left LA.
Yeah, think about the time we were in America that led to a lot of that kind of behavior. And I actually think there's a lot of truth in it. Like, it's so funny because I'm so into business, I'm into all this other stuff that I love. So it's not obvious what's actually happening in my wiring, but I just want more simplicity for people. The more simplicity you have, and for me, simplicity comes in the form of judgment. The thing that I'm trying to think as much about as possible is how do I have a conversation that might impact someone positively about the concept of judgment, and it actually starts with yourself. The thing that I'm really hot on right now is, of course, so many people are judging each other. They start with themselves. I just wish people wouldn't beat themselves up so much. Like, I hate when people are like, oh, but Gary, you don't get it. I'm so ambitious. I'm like, I'm the fucking craziest ambitious person I've ever met in my life. That doesn't mean that if I don't win this year or this decade that I think I'm a piece of shit. That's not healthy. And I definitely don't have envy. Envy is a framework of conversation that has to be eliminated. How can you envy someone when you don't know them? You know a piece of them. You know a headline of them. You might like something that's going on with them. How can you actually envy somebody that you know nothing about? We just have to simplify. Simplify, but like for me, it's so simple to be content and hungry as fuck at the same time. I've come to know that that's confusing and sounds like a contradiction, but I have to continue to unpack it because in that is fucking everything. It's the whole game. When you like want it more, like I want to be the greatest human that ever lived. I genuinely swear on my children's health as I sit in front of you here right now that when I die in 55 years, when I'm in heaven doing my Google shit, I'm gonna look down and I'm like, okay, good. 7 billion people came to my funeral. That's how I wake up every day trying to navigate my life. At the same token, if it all ended tomorrow and 9 people came, that's fine too. And finding that balance of extremities to make it balance, not like something that's confusing, is something we have to talk more about. And so to answer your question in a very long-winded way, what I would say to that person is break it down, get simpler, tune out the noise. Most of all, tune out your own noise against yourself